So this is quite interesting because in this post itself in particular, or I say this article, okay, Ari exposes this couple for doing horrible things. And to be honest with you, the person who is spoken about really didn't take me by surprise. But let's get into it. So obviously, as always with most articles, there's always a little background, to obviously give you guys up to date with exactly what's been happening, especially for those people who have not been watching the show. So it begins at the very beginning. He's saying that Ari ended up coming on 90 Day Fiance with her husband Benny. After looking at their social media, fans already knew their marriage was already hanging by a thread. Apart from this, the former had issues with almost everyone in the last resort because she thought everyone was targeting her. Okay, her journey with Benny ended midway when he decided to check out and part ways early, which was literally one of the best decisions they both made, and obviously he made. But anyway, with that being said, though, we continue here where it does say that yet Ari and Benny have come to the table to provide the latest details about their relationship. Okay, the former had to say quite a lot about her fellow cast members as she felt wronged by them. By them on many levels. She didn't stop herself from also exposing a shocking cast member and accuse him of doing really awful things. So, who is it and what did they do? And this is where it gets a bit interesting. Well, it's going to. Now, with that being said, it continues here with the title itself in particular that says, "I'm done," says Julia after Ari attacks her. Ari has always come off as someone with a victim mentality on 90 Day Fiance, which is the reason why a lot of people have never been a fan of her. But at the same time, though, I will say this: it's easy to look like you come off as a victim mentality when you're with someone that literally gives you that kind of a complex. I mean, listen, let's just talk about it real quick. We have to remember there are certain people in this world that legit have a victim mentality, and those people also have that narcissistic mentality along with it. Okay, but then there are those people who decide to be in a relationship with people that can mostly gaslight them or put them in situations where it looks like they are playing victim, but in reality they're actually trying to cry out or they're trying to speak out. But each time they do, the person that they're with will always do something that makes them look like as if they're always playing victim, because that person isn't being 100% authentic with their actions. For example, there are many times when people, and I will say this trigger warning based on what I'm about to say next game, but generally speaking, or in some situations, sometimes when it comes out that someone has been with said person and it turns out that person was actually being domestically violent to that person, whether that be physically or mentally, that person that we then didn't realize was actually doing all those things to that person is the person that the whole time we thought that person was a great person. You know what I mean? And we just thought that the person that they're with was the person that was a bit... That's how things usually work in those type of scenarios. Right now, of course, with Benny and Ari, that was never the case. Thank freaking gosh. But my point is that I believe that there were times when Ari probably was playing victim mentality, but then there were times when she wasn't playing victim mentality. She was just trying to get to the bottom of the truth, looking for that closure that she feels she deserved from Benny, especially given the fact that despite everything that they've been through, she still stuck by his side by being his manager and making sure that she did what she could to help him get opportunities that he's been getting that is not 90-day related. Something that just needs to be food for thought, okay? But there's no excuse the fact that, yes, Ari does have the victim mentality, but in some situations, it wasn't always the case. We pay attention to the details, specifically of this season just gone, of The Last Resort. I will say confidently that in the season just gone here, Ari never had victim mentality. It was all about trying to get that closure. In the first season, yeah, we can go with that. And then another season that they came back, that's when it was a bit yes she was and a bit no she wasn't. It's just that once people have a certain perspective of you, people will believe that this is who you are no matter what else you do. And sadly, that's just how the world works. And this is what happens when people can sometimes become quite naive. But with that being said though, let's continue with the rest of this, because I feel like it's something that's important that needs to be addressed, not necessarily addressed in terms of backing or supporting Ari per se. It's something that needs to be addressed so people can think about it when you're around people that you know. Okay, so if you're around people that you know and you recognize certain things that are happening, maybe don't always try and question the person that is playing the victim, and maybe try and find out why they're doing it. If you can find out why they're doing it, if you realize that they're doing it because they are generally a narcissistic person who thinks everything's against them, then you know that person is that, you know what I'm saying? But if you recognize they don't necessarily have some of those other traits, and it was only this specific part of their life that they seem to have this sort of victim mentality, but in the other part of their life they don't actually have any narcissist traits, and then then maybe you need to start looking at the person that they're with rather than the person that they are displaying themselves to be. Do you see what I'm saying? These things can definitely help you identify people in your life who are with the wrong people, okay? And even yourself might even help you identify the person that you're with and recognize that the person you're with actually aren't. Do you see what I'm saying? Think about it, okay? Food for thought, generally speaking, doesn't have to be related to Ari per se or Benim, just saying these are the things that people do miss out, and then boom bam, shit happens. That is not good. But we continue. So now it says here, okay, it's one of the qualities that fans don't appreciate about her. Well, she decided to throw shade on the other cast members during the tell-all 2. She explained how she was nervous before coming to the resort and thought she wouldn't get along with any of the cast members, but her opinion changed after befriending Sophie and Julia. But then Ari said that trusting Julia was one of her biggest mistakes. Well, Lata didn't hold back and pointed out how Ari had called her I'm assuming a C-U-N-T, yeah. She immediately shot back at Julia by saying she was acting like one. It really sent the brunette off, and she stood up while saying she was done. It turns out that our customer dealt with Ari's wrath from the tell. Who was it? Now I will say this though, okay? See, when it comes to 90 Day Fiance, something that I've noticed is that there's always cast members who are targeted, and then there's always cast members who are protected, and then there were cast members who were exiled, so therefore they end up not having a voice. And you will always get those 3 perspectives per each season for the most part. In my humble opinion, I think this situation here where Ari was the one that was, I guess, people didn't like or whatever, okay? I reckon because Ari spoke her truth, because Ari actually has a backbone, Ari, I'd say somebody that's probably grown to be a stronger person than who she was when she first began on the show. And we can't say that about a lot of people. There's a lot of people, when they began the show, they have shown no growth. A lot of them have even got worse as well. If you're talking about someone like a Paul or Corinne or an Angela, you know what I mean? Them kind of people who have gotten worse. Even Jasmine, for that matter, has got worse. Yeah, fair enough. But we're talking about somebody, in my opinion, who's shown traits that has actually grown as a person per se. Not obviously in all areas, but in some areas. So the fact that she even had the decency to say, you know what, F this, I'm calling you out and you out and you out, is fantastic. Because think about it, she's the one that called out Rob for being a hypocrite. At the same time, she's the one that also called Julia out for having a certain level of energy for someone else when it was different for others. So to be honest with you, I feel like we actually need that every season, especially at tell-alls, because at tell-alls, what's the main thing that we always miss? We always miss that one cast member, well, technically speaking, this should be the host. But we're generally always missing that one cast member, not every tell, but every other tell who will not confront said person. The last time that I can remember somebody who actually confronted someone properly, actually no, there's been a couple of them, but the one that I liked the most, one of the ones I liked most was when when Yara would step up to Angela. I always did enjoy how Yara would always tell Angela how she felt. That was beautiful to see. Something that we want to see happen more and more. But hey, Julia obviously just wasn't willing to hack it, which it is what it is. It is what it is. But nonetheless though, let's find out who this other person that is being spoken about. 90 Day Fiance Ari calls out the cast member for doing terrible things and divert everyone. Ari created a lot of ruckus in the last resort, in the Arizona last resort where she was filming the last resort with the other 90 Day cast members. It turns out Rob called her out for self-victimizing herself a lot. Well, Rob has been on a roll ever since he decided to call Jasmine out and got hit with a shoe from her twice. He didn't stop his antics, and his next target was Ari, so she addressed this online. You know what's interesting though? What I want to know is something very, very simple. When is Rob going to call out a man? Loves to call out the women. Now, I'm not saying Rob is wrong for calling that Jasmine. No, I'm saying he was wrong to call out Ari if that's how you felt about her. But why are you not calling out the men the same way though? You know? I mean, Ari was the one that said to him, I see the way you didn't give the same energy to Benny, the way you gave it to Jasmine. I've never seen him speak up against a man. That's all I want to say. Women seems to be an easy thing. You know, whether that be Sophie's mom, whether that be Sophie, whether that be Kai, Sophie's friend, whether that be Ari, whether that be Jasmine. I mean, who knows what other woman is next on his list. What a man he is, right? It's crazy, isn't it, in life? Some people see somebody who has, I guess, somewhat of an attractive face and they think, he's all right. but yet he's actually talking a whole bunch of against women only for the most part. That says a lot about a character. But as you can see from this screenshot itself in particular here, somebody come out and said, I agree with him. She victimizes herself a lot of situations she created. I don't know if she created a situation where Benny actually cheated on her, but whatever. Or created a situation where Julia was actually, you know, icky to her first or whatever. But it is what it is. She loves the drama and attention. Ick. She comes in and says he is not insightful. He formed a gang with the men on the show so they could deflect from their awful behavior, including infidelity and worse. He has to do this so people won't focus on the horrific stuff he does on TV and behind closed doors. Time will tell. I don't need anyone to take my word for it. Now let's not forget, you know, Rob has been exposed before, you know, obviously with the videos of him obviously being verbally abusive towards Sophie, you know, amongst other accusations as well. Now here's the thing though, nobody can deny this. At the tell-all, the men have definitely stuck together when it's come to coming after any of the women, especially Jasmine. So to be fair, there is definitely truth being said here. Okay, and to be fair with you, I do feel like some of these things that we hear about Rob behind closed doors, I feel like they're like literally gonna come out at one point, because boy, too many people are now reporting it, and that is something that is rather concerning. Now also on top of that, it continues by saying that, well, actually repeats what I just read there, doesn't it? But I'll say it anyway. In one of the comments of the video, Ari called Rob out. She said he was so insightful. He was not insightful. As per he formed a gang with other male cast members. In fact, she feels he did so they could deflect from their own awful behavior, which included infidelity and other worse things, which I do agree. I do agree, because let's be real, where was the energy when Florian was getting confronted for his behavior? Where was the energy when Benny was getting confronted for his behavior? Do you see what I'm saying? The energy was definitely different, but if the energy was being brought towards the women, oh yeah, he had a whole lot of things to say. Ari, as per Ari, Rob may have done this so that people don't focus on his awful behavior on screen and behind the closed doors, which of course we can't comment on without seeing. Finally, Ari ended her post by saying time will tell, implying that the things Rob was hiding might come out soon. Well, she also had to tell her trolls that she didn't want them to take her word for it. Everyone has been wondering since then what other awful things she was talking about. Many know how Rob's ex Sophie has accused him of domestic violence and hooking up with men when they were married. Well, there you go. There you go. And to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I will say this, okay, whether you want to hear it or not, people who create gangs to come after people, and people who deflect from their own things, and people who get angry when they're called out for their own BS, those are the people that generally have some serious skeletons in their closet. And Rob seems to be ticking the box of all of those things. Create a gang, gets very, very heated and angry when he's called out. Says a whole lot about somebody, does it now? But hey, if people want to see what they want to see because maybe they fancy Rob and they say, oh, he's a cute guy, then hey, see what you want to see. But hey, these are the type of people, but when these things happen and then you're in a situation with these kind of people and now your back's up against the wall, you'd be saying a whole different level. I mean, this is why I guess some people in life end up dating down, should we say, you know? Some people end up settling in life, that they say, because they're like, I don't know if I can trust somebody who I'm attracted to anymore by that much. Something probably to not laugh about per se. But nonetheless though, let me know your thoughts on the mad itself in particular, because as far as I'm concerned, this is all absolute madness. Could it be hinting that Arya was hinting towards the same things, or is Rob capable of doing so much worse? Now that is a question to end off this video. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, peace.